Welcome to Season 3 of the Take the Leap podcast. We want to thank you for being a part of this journey with us.
Whether you're just starting to tune in or you're a longtime listener of the podcast, you can expect to hear from entrepreneurs in all stages of their journey, how they got to where they are, and all the mistakes and victories they've had along the way.
We're excited to share new guests and have some returning folks from our first 2 seasons. Thank you for being here, and we hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome back, everyone, to the Take the Leap podcast. We're really excited for our guest today, Alayna Weimer, an HR and business consultant. She has been in HR training, development, leadership, and efficiency expert positions for the last 25 years, all over the Northwest, including Eugene and the Portland metro area. She has worked with executives, frontline employees, and middle management. Some of these roles included working with underperforming stores to help them get up to standards, working with organizations who had grown fast in a short period of time and needed extra support and direction on firming up their HR procedures and culture, and working with teams that were struggling with HR barriers to help them create a culture of positivity and support. In these leadership roles, she has supervised from 10 to 4,500 employees and has a deep understanding of how to navigate the leadership roles, no matter the number of employees you have or the current situation you are faced with. Alayna has a Bachelor of Science from Eastern Oregon University in Integrated Studies with a minor in Psychology and Business, and she and her husband Brandon own the Herringbone Bookstore in Redmond, Oregon, and she works with small businesses and nonprofits. Welcome, Alayna. So happy to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you guys so much for having me come. This is exciting.
Yeah. Well, it was wonderful because I know a few months back earlier this year, Danielle Dinkelman, who has been on the podcast a couple times now, introduced us. So it was really great to have it full circle and have, networking and being able to have you on. But we'll jump into the very first question that we ask all of our guests, which is, what is your Take the Leap story? Why did you decide to become an entrepreneur?
Oh, very great question. I think I've always been an entrepreneur. I just didn't realize it. My corporate career allowed me to have some of that entrepreneurial experience or strength. But it was about 6 years ago that my corporate career unexpectedly ended. It wasn't something that I knew. We were right in the process of my husband's entrepreneurial journey, and thought, okay, I guess it's time to take that leap and to do something different, because my options were go back into corporate or go back into where I was at, or start to really create and design what I wanted to do. Like some of the things that I had always thought I could do and help in the community, this was the time to try it. And as we built the bookstore together and I worked with my husband and helped him live his passion, that is what really drew me into, wow, if I could help people go from where they're at to living their dream, that is where I want to spend my time. My husband had always wanted to own a bookstore, never thought it was going to be a possibility. And it was just being willing to ask the questions, take the risks. And he is by far having the best time ever, and the community loves him. So this anxiety he was able to overcome, and now is just a staple in the community. And that's what that continued for me. That was the passion that I saw, and the reason I wanted to keep doing what I was doing and say, yep, it's time. So that's kind of my Take a Leap story.
I love that.
That's really cool. I love that. Yeah, I love that that you helped each other and you helped him, and that's like, I feel like that's so important when you are married or in a partnership and you want to start your own business or follow a passion like that. Having someone else in your corner, I think like that's the only reason I think why I've been able to do the things I've been doing. And I think that's just such an important piece. I think that people don't always talk about too, is having your support system be there with you and go through it with you is such a huge thing.
Absolutely. I think that can make people more successful in that. Absolutely.
And I'm curious too, like both of you being entrepreneurs, has that like been an interesting journey in terms of like, I don't know, I always feel like anytime people ask like, so what do you do, what does your husband do, and we're like, we're both entrepreneurs, it's always like an interesting conversation to have with folks as well.
Yeah, people are you nuts? What in the world are you doing? Well, and it's been fascinating too, because again, not everybody, like the person you marry is not always the person you choose to work with, right? Because there's reasons.
Right.
Yeah.
And that we went through all of that as well. There's when we first started out, I thought, oh my goodness, I'm just gonna help him and be a part of it. And as we went through that journey together, very quickly realized, ooh, that is not the best place for me. And his support, that is not a good idea. And so it's been really great for us to learn, how do we work together? What does that look like? And it's kind of elevated our trust level of each other. People will come into the bookstore and say, oh my gosh, I know your wife. And he's like, awesome. Like, how do you know her? And I'll be on the phone with somebody or in the community, and I always have to say, oh, I'm, Herringbone Book. Oh my gosh, I love that store. I know. Oh, you're Miss Brandon. Yep, I'm Miss Brandon. So
That's
been
cute.
fun to watch. And it's not without its challenges, right? Because, and actually not everybody has that supportive network, as you were talking about earlier, is a lot of times people, when they start, people are like, you're nuts. Why are you doing that? You had this great job. It's not always the most supportive. And for us, I mean, I'd heard that over the years. And so for me, it was really important to make sure he felt supported, even if I didn't agree with how he was doing everything. That wasn't the most important thing, right? The most important thing was getting over the fear, taking the action, and moving forward. And that's typically what keeps people, from my experience, from doing that, from moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually what I hear a lot of people say is like, oh my God, that's so scary. Or like, how are you doing that? And it's like, well, people pay me money, and more people, you keep selling it and more people pay you money, and it magically works, and you get over that imposter syndrome and that fear over time, as you're just like, oh yeah, this is a viable business option / career option. And gosh, it also makes it, I don't know, so much easier sometimes too, because you're not like being like, okay, well, they're never paying me anymore, and now I need to go look for a new job, or like I've reached the pinnacle in this company and I can't really move around. It relieves kind of all of those other stressors in a way that folks have in that kind of corporate environment.
Yeah, it's fascinating because a lot of people don't look at it that way. But I think one of the things about doing your own business is that you gain control. You can't always control what the market does, right? But as an entrepreneur, you control how, like, you're not waiting on your organization to decide how they're going to navigate and whatever is happening. I have felt, and I've seen people feel more in control of their lives when they, get the right supports in there.
Absolutely.
That when something happens during, an economic downturn or an economic upturn, they have the flexibility and the control to say, well, I could add this to my business, or I could shift here. And that is something that I've loved to do, because I went live the day of COVID, the day Oregon shut down from COVID. And I thought, that is the best decision. I did that. But it was because I had so much more freedom. I was not bound by what somebody else's idea or vision was. And that's not for everybody. I get that. But for me, it was so empowering.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I guess, like, knowing what you know now, what piece of advice would you give yourself when you first started?
Great question. One of the things that I think about is I wish I would have given myself permission to fail fast. Meaning, sometimes we move so slow, even when we start a business, because we're afraid of that failure. That imposter syndrome still shows up. But what we really know, right, is that when we fail, it's really not a failure. It's just we learn something, we gain something new. And so that's one thing. And then and that kind of goes into also, don't judge yourself by what everybody's telling you have to do. I tell people all the time, that's one of the things that I love to do with Discover Your Success, which is you're called, like you feel it in your body, something that you're called that you should be doing. And not everything that's out there when you start a business is going to align with where you want to go, right? You hear, oh, make tons of money, or if you only do it this way. And that I wish I would have given myself, or I wish I would have known that, or internalize that more, which is be true to what I'm being called to do, because I can only do it that way in that, in my personality in that way. And that's really what is needed. So those are the things I think I would have given to myself, is fail fast, which is essentially give yourself some grace and just, if you make a mistake, learn and move on, but do not dwell on it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, dwelling almost keeps you stuck too, because then you're not in motion, and you lose like all of your momentum in that space as well. Yeah. And I love what you shared there about like doing it your way, or like the way you were called to, because I do think a lot of times like there are entrepreneurs / business coaches and different folks out there who are like, I have your number one perfect formula and you can pay me $10,000 and it's going to work perfectly. And I'm like, is it? Is it really? Or else if that was that easy, we would all be doing it so much easier. And so, yeah, I do think that that's one of the nice and freeing things about entrepreneurship, is like you get to choose your own path and your own way, and also choose like who you work with and who you don't work with, because it doesn't work for them. So, I have our last question before we jump into the hot seat. But we always ask, what's your why? Why entrepreneurship? Why continue doing this? Because we know it's not always easy.
And love that question, and very timely for me this week. Is so when I had my corporate career before I ever had children, and I recognize too that my journey is not the same as everybody else's, but we started to do foster care. And foster care, like what we thought it would be and what it ended up being, were not the same. And I learned and I grew a lot. One of the things that keeps me doing this is the ability to be flexible in my family life. Again, it's not every day that I can pick them up from the bus. It's not every day that I can go to a meeting, but it allows me to pick and choose and have enough flexibility within my schedule that I can choose what are the important things. And then I get to have the quality of time. It's the quality, not always, the quantity. And it's just allowed me to be a little bit more freedom. I don't have to ask my boss, hey, can I have this time off? If something comes up last minute and it's all I was going to do is work on a specific thing, I can take the time out and go do a thing, as opposed to, let me go to my boss. Hey, so my kids just told me about this event that's happening. Can I have the day off? And what happens 90% of the time, it's you didn't tell us, you didn't give our 24-hour notice, all of the reasons that you can't. And so it's my family, and then my family and being able to work in the community. One of the things that I loved about my work was the ability to work with community, but it becomes limited and corporate. It has to be just their mission or just their vision that they're working on. And I love now that I get to work, and you had articulated it too, you get to work with who you want to work with. And that means I get to help. If somebody comes and asks me for something for our community event, I can decide just to hand something, or I can say, oh, I have like a whole day. Can I come volunteer? It gives me that flexibility to really help build my personal life. And sometimes I'm great at it and sometimes I'm terrible at it, but I still have the agency and the flexibility to be able to make those decisions. And that's why I keep doing it.
Yeah.
It's a really good answer.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting that you talk about the bosses that you have to go ask, like, why didn't you give us 24 hours notice? Depending on the age of the child, they did not give you 24 hours notice.
Right. They're the real boss here.
Yeah. Who's really in charge? It ain't us.
Yeah.
So,
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Well, and I relate to that so much. My son is 3, and I started this business before I had him, but I keep going because of him. And this is the only lifestyle I will accept right now. Like I don't know how I'd be able to spend time with him and do half the things I do if I still had my 9 to 5 corporate job.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
love that. Well, I think we're ready for the hot seat questions. This is just like it's a fun section that we come up with random questions or we popcorn kind of all over the place. So,
Great.
yeah, we love it. And I always kick it off with the same question, and that is, what is the best and or worst advice you've received in your career?
Yeah. The best advice that I ever received is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That was by far the best advice because that applies to everything. Everything you do, you work with people. And the reality is people really don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So that was probably some of the best advice that I ever received. And I actually don't even remember when. I think it was early in my career when I had a manager that just had lived that, with the heart. And I would say the worst advice, is that what you said? The worst thing? Ooh, that is such a hard one because what they said would have been terrible, but what I learned from that is, ooh, that's not something you say. You're trying to encourage. That's a terrible idea. But I think one of the worst things, like somebody said to me, was when it came to my schooling, my education. And so I started off going to school, thought I was going to be a math teacher, got involved in this job, and my school and my job did not align, even though I was taking business courses. And I remember somebody said to me, oh, but you need that. You have to have that degree. Because if you don't have that degree, then you have no credibility. And that was probably the worst advice I ever got because it made me question my internal and my ability to adapt and adjust. And going to school is not always educational. Well, you know what I mean? Like you can learn so much. So that it's not the degree itself as much as it's the things that you're doing, the way that you're learning. Schooling is an education, but it's not always the classes you go to that you're getting the most out, right? So there's the life experiences. And I learned that, one, not everybody can afford to go to a formal education, but it took me a while to go back to school. And I ended up doing that just because I was so far. But I learned so much just in the doing that it wasn't just, it's knowledge, going after knowledge and seeking education. Seeking education is not the same as just getting a degree.
Yeah.
That's
a good point.
That's a good point. I have expensive pieces of paper, but they are not all,
I do too. Yeah. I do too. 100%. I went down that road, but I've met so many people that couldn't. And
yeah. I think that the learning ability and the adaptability is much more important than just like, cool, you memorized like all these facts and figures from a macroeconomics class. Like there are many classes that I took that I'm like, not going to use that at all. Yeah.
Oh yeah, me too.
Okay, totally pivoting, different question, different genre. What are some common mistakes that you see clients make when it comes to managing HR on their own without having that internal expertise?
One of them is they overcomplicate. I think people sometimes completely overcomplicate the human resource, the HR. Again, it goes back to that if you take care of your people, a lot of those things go away. The need for some of those policies and procedures, while you want to have them, as you take care of your people, the amount of time you have to spend executing them or following up to them minimizes. So that's one mistake I see is individuals that overcomplicate it. I would also say within that same is that most business owners look at HR as a compliance.
Yes.
I have to do this. I don't have to do that. It's very like red tapey. Mm-hmm. And a really good HR department or a manager who has really great leadership skills, they're going to create the culture that they need. People are going to work towards developing what that looks like. So those would be the two biggest mistakes I see, is that, again, they overcomplicate it, and then they get so stuck in the red tape and get so afraid of doing anything because it is a don't do or a do, that they actually make more mistakes and make it worse for themselves.
Are you saying that they're leaving the human element out of it?
Yes. So crazy. It's so funny because you've seen this pivot. Have you seen, like, over the last year of HR, it's the I think it's like human-centered. I'm like, what's human resources? Haven't we always been human-centered? Okay. Oh, got it. But yes, all the time they do.
Yeah. And I think that's like such a thing too that happens when we abbreviate things, like.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah. Such a good point, actually. That's something that, I was talking to somebody else about something else. And when you spell out what that is and you articulate that, it's a good reminder, right? There's a reason it's called human resources, because the humans who do the work are a resource. They're such an abundant resource, and we underutilize them actually because we minimize their impact and minimize their contributions. Mm-hmm. And then they go somewhere else.
Yep. Yeah. Like, I understand job descriptions, but I also feel like they lock so much potential up as well. So it's a real catch-22 with that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was great. What kind of like spiraling off of clients and working with clients and things, what types of clients and companies that you work with bring you the most joy?
Passionate individuals. I've been in this consulting, coaching, right? That's such a twisted word right now, but I've been in this space for a while, and one of the people always ask me, what's your niche? Like, who do you like to work with? And one of my focuses is on identifying the people that have a real passion for something. And so the people I love to work with are the people who have that. They know what they need to do, like, meaning they've been called, like they know what their calling is. They see this gap in services. They see a gap in the community's ability to bridge a gap, and they are so passionate about it that they understand what the end result needs to be. Those are my favorite clients because they recognize that they don't know the operations, right? They're not delusional. Their egos don't typically get in the way, and they look to you for that guidance. And that, I love being able to say, we're going to take care of this back end stuff or this HR stuff so you can go be the face of the organization, because that message that is so near and dear to their heart, when you get out there and they talk about it, they are the ones that convert people to donate, to get excited and get on board. Those are my favorite. The people that will just jump in and know that they need the support, even if they don't know what the support is, but their egos just don't get in the way.
I love that.
It makes sense.
That's great.
Yeah.
I know.
Tell me how you came up with the name of your business.
Ooh. Ignite Positive Changes.
Yes.
Yeah, it took me a while. Everybody, I thought maybe I can use my name, which eventually I took a slight spin off of my name. But it really came down to, what am I really trying to do? And in every single interaction and everything I do, whether it's a conversation I have with somebody, whether it's I can actually step in and help, it's, what do I want the outcome? And that was what it was. I want there to be change, positive change. Whatever, like I didn't have this idea on what exactly the change was, other than I wanted positive changes to happen in that. And so as I sat with that's I want positive things to happen. It's what hinders people from doing that, and what's my visual in my head for doing that. And of course, it's that ignite, like you just light a fire and it poof, and that fire does what? It heats. There's a lot of other things, right? But it heats and it gives warmth and it does something good. And sometimes fires can run and do some other things, but the initial is it can do good things. And that's where I wanted that focus to be. We're igniting and getting going fast and getting things moving in that right direction. Good, positive change, whatever that positive changes are. It also gave me flexibility to tweak when I needed to tweak my business, right? Like I may have started off on one path and felt called, like, yes, this is where I want to be, but this one piece is not really resonating right now for whatever reason. And then it allows me to shift, because again, the goal is positive changes that can apply to a lot of different things. So
yeah, I was looking on your website, and it's you offer a lot of services under the umbrella. And so did you start out the gate offering all of those, or were they kind of layered on as the needs increased with their client set?
Yeah, they were layered on. I had this when I started, like I started off with some bookkeeping, again, trying to figure out, because I had such a diverse background on the things that I could do. I started with what I thought was going to get me the most traction. But as I started to dig in, I realized, oh man, people need help in all of these areas, and I have expertise. So I could either just go with one focus, or I can open that up so that people know that it's really not about the services you need. It's about you as the individual. What kind of support do you need, and can we help you with that support? Because again, that's that human connection. Can we work with you and help you develop as a leader, not just the tasks behind? Mm-hmm. And that was always very important to me, even in my corporate career, was the leadership. It's really my goal to help people learn and to get better so that they become the experts in their business. And that being an expert in the business doesn't mean being an expert in books or being an expert in, it means you understand the whole picture. Mm-hmm. And that's, as we started to layer on, I was reminded of that as I would meet with a client.
That's great.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. And I think it just speaks to, I think in any entrepreneur journey, like we start one way, and then we learn and we grow and we figure out like what our clients like, what they don't, what we like, what we don't. And I think that's just part of the process. I think that's one thing that I wish somebody had told me too, is like, just expect that like things will always be changing, and be okay with, like, learn to be okay with that. That doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It just means you're growing as you learn.
I love that. Yeah. So true.
Yeah. Well, what is the biggest, I guess, misconception that clients have when they first come to you? Like, what's a myth that you get to bust for them?
I love that, because it goes back to people don't know what they don't know. And I would say the biggest misconception is that they really have an understanding of what their gap is, no matter what that gap is. Because a lot of times we get so narrow focused that we can only see it in one perspective. So it's always fun for me to ask some questions and to watch how they start to come outside of their shell and think, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. But yes, that is one of the problems. So I think the biggest misconception when people come to meet is that they know exactly what part of their problem is.
That's fair. Yeah. I like that. How do you like dive in with them and figure out like what their problem is? Like when you're having conversations, like are there patterns or things that you're like, oh, here we go again, red flag?
Yes. It's funny because like some of the basic questions. So tell me what's the biggest pain point, or If you could, I love to tell people this is where I like to start, is if I gave you $1 million to do whatever in your business, what would be the first thing you would do? And then they tell me, I would create a school, whatever that is. And then I say, well, so why haven't, what's holding you back outside of the money, right? Outside of the $1 million check, what's holding you back from doing that? And it's when you can get into more of the heart, not the business piece, but you get into who they are as a person and start asking those questions. So, well, I just don't have time. Well, tell me more about that. Like what's taking up your time? It's really those open-ended questions nobody likes. My team, I remember I had team members used to say, oh, stop asking me questions. They get annoyed because they would come to me with a problem and want me to solve it. And my goal was to help them learn how to solve that problem. Because then they could be so much more self-sufficient later. And that's the beauty in asking those questions, is because most people know, meaning we are very good about knowing our limitations, right?
Yeah.
So even when I asked the question, I talked about people don't know exactly what the problem is. They don't, but as you dig in, they start to uncover what role they have in their current dynamic. And they can start to realize that what they're some of their issues are things that they can control. That's a game changer for a lot of individuals, because all of a sudden then it's not things that are happening to me, but it's we could shift here and this will change that, or I can shift here, but it's helping them recognize first what role they play in their current status.
That's great. That's a good answer.
That's a good example.
Yeah.
I feel like too, people who come in and they're like, yeah, this is the problem and this is what I need you to solve. It's like going to the doctor and being like, I want that drug. I just saw the ad for that prescription drug.
I went to WebMD.
Yeah. And this is what it says I have.
That's so funny, because that's one of the reasons I really like having services too, because people in their mind have this idea of what the problem is, right? So somebody may come to me for bookkeeping even. And so we start talking, and then I can ask questions around the bookkeeping, and then they start to realize, oh, it may not be a book, maybe it's a people issue. Do I not have the right person in the right role? Mm-hmm. And that's so much fun for me. I love having those conversations.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Twinning. Jinx.
Coke, you owe me a Coke? Isn't that right?
Yeah.
They're probably too young for that, but that was our thing.
That was our thing too, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we've been doing this so long now that we've just adapted our similar sayings and things. Yeah.
Yeah. Even sometimes when I put this through the what is that called? The thing to run the transcript, it thinks that we're the same voice sometimes.
That's so funny.
We're just morphing.
Yep. I like it.
All right, I've got our final question that we're asking all of our guests, because at some point we're going to do a roundup something or other. But what is a piece of media content, be it a song, a movie, a book, a podcast, that you're obsessed with or digging right now?
Oof. Some type of a media that I'm just digging right now, huh?
Yeah.
A podcast, a movie. It could be anything.
It could be anything. It could be an app. It could be, just any.
A book.
Yeah. Okay. So one of my favorite is, I don't know how many people know about Getting Things Done by David Allen, but David Allen has more of a methodology. And one of the reasons that I'm just so nerding out on that right now is because one of the things I tell my clients is the best system, right? Because there's so many systems, technology. The best system is the system you'll actually use, meaning you can buy 500 different platforms, but if you don't use them, it is a complete waste of your time and your energy. And I have a couple clients right now that are really struggling with, the squirrel, I could buy this and I could buy that. And so Getting Things Done by David Allen is more of a methodology. It's about getting those things out of your head and down and in a way, in a structure that allows you to be more creative. Mm-hmm. It helps clean that space up. And there's, they don't talk a lot about the neurological stuff about it, but the neurological stuff really does validate what's there. But I also love that he doesn't say you need to do this system or this system. What he does is the methodology is, here's what you do, and there's so many different ways to incorporate it into what you're already doing. It's a low barrier to getting your mind organized and clear. And I am nerding out on it because sometimes I get off track and I got to get back on track. And so I'm completely nerding out on that because I'm like, oh, it's time. And I'm bringing a couple people along with me. So that's been really fun to see how that can be applied and allow them that space in their head to actually get creative again.
I'm gonna go take a look at this because I feel like
Yeah.
I'm ready for not necessarily a new system, but just like a system like reboot, cleanup, be like, things, and they're not even things that like cost money, but they're just things that like, oh, I did input a bunch of stuff in there and then I just stopped using it, like ClickUp. I'm like,
yes,
like,
yes.
It's like I love it, but also like I'm still such a handwriting person, like, so that's, I mean, it's nice to have the to-do list digitally and by hand, but it just, it gets, I wish there was a way that I could check it off on the handwritten thing and it could communicate.
Oh, there it is.
Oh,
watch out. Like I nerd out on that as well. I mean, it depends on how you set those systems up, but I actually love paper as well. Like there's sometimes I need to have, like there is a sensory. So I'm learning so much more about sensory integration because I work with an outpatient pediatric clinic. I've learned so much about myself, but that sensory, that writing on paper actually helps calm me down. And so when you talk about, like, that's why writing for me is such a thing, because there's so much tech and there's so many online and meetings that being able to write it, just that connects to my brain more, and I actually learn more and process more. So I also love I love the writing as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's good to know. Well, thank you so much, Alayna. We have come to the end of our questions. Was there anything that we didn't highlight or hit on that you want to share with our audience before we sign off for today?
No, thank you so much for the questions. They were wonderful. I mean, they helped me dig deep again. And I always love that when there's a question that makes me, think about it a little bit more. So I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for letting me come today. This is so great. You guys have such a great podcast, and just what you're doing is amazing. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. We will see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Take the Leap podcast. Check out our show notes to connect with us and our guests. If you have questions about the episode or ideas for future topics, send us a direct message on Instagram or email us at aloha@taketheleap-today.com. If you're interested in being a guest, fill out the guest interest form on our website.
If you're a new entrepreneur who is looking for a roadmap to move your business idea forward, check out the Take the Leap course on our website, taketheleap-today.com. Members who join the course also have an opportunity to join us in bi-weekly co-working and group coaching calls to build momentum and work on your business.
And if you'd like a flavor of what we offer, sign up for our free webinar with the 9 essential steps you need to launch your business with clarity and confidence. See you next time.